In 1998, the neo-soul movement was near its peak when a collective of like-minded artists came together to push the wave even higher. They called themselves the Soulquarians, and before the decade ended, they'd helped birth some of the modern era's greatest recordings. At the Soulquarians' core were R&B singer-songwriter D'Angelo and the drummer and spiritual leader of the Roots, Amir Questlove Thompson. They were bound together by what Quest described as a love for sickness in their work. Funky analog sounds and organic rhythms that stood out sharply in an era of computer-aided recording. They also just happened to share the same zodiac sign. The Soulquarians movement was born at Electric Lady Studios, the fabled Greenwich Village recording studio built by Jimi Hendrix shortly before his death. Electric Lady had been collecting dust for years when D'Angelo decided to set up shop there to record his follow-up to 1995's Brown Sugar, partly because Stevie Wonder recorded Music of My Mind and Talking Book there. He would use the same keyboards that Stevie himself played on Talking Book to create his own opus, Voodoo. As soon as they started, the Voodoo sessions took on a life of their own. D'Angelo essentially moved into the space, along with Questlove, who he called his co-pilot during the album's creation. In order to stay close to the action, Questlove moved the recording of the Roots LP Things Fall Apart to Electric Lady as well.
Step into the realm, you're bound to get caught. From this worldly life, you'll soon depart. Step into the realm.
Quest and D's creative partnership verged on the obsessive. They made a habit of dropping a couple $1,000s at a record store, then rushing back to the studio to spend hours listening and jamming. They pored over recordings by legendary artists that Questlove called Yodas, including Prince, Al Green, and Joni Mitchell, analyzing them for clues to making timeless albums. The session's magnetic energy quickly drew in a coalition of world-class talent, including Raphael Saadiq, Q-Tip, DJ Premier, Method Man, and Redman. Questlove added Common and Erykah Badu to the mix when he brought them to Electric Lady to record their own albums, hoping that they'd pick up on the psychedelic energy going on there. The growing Soulquarian family also attracted the two artists who'd fill out the group's core. James Poyser, a former apprentice of the legendary Philly songwriters Gamble and Huff, became the group's in-house composer and keyboard guru. Detroit producer James Yancey, aka J Dilla, added eccentric, off-kilter beats that had a heavy influence on the Soulquarian signature style. A virtuoso with a sampler, Dilla's ear was legendary. Questlove recalled Dilla pulling a loop from Rick James' Give It To Me Baby that he himself had deemed unsampleable. The resulting beat would become Common's Doing It.
Yeah, I am doing it, do it with it. I am doing it, C-O-double-M-O.
The Soulquarians worked relentlessly. At times they were working on Voodoo, Common's Like Water for Chocolate, and Badu's Mama's Gun, simultaneously in all three of Electric Lady's studios. The creatively charged atmosphere fostered collaboration and competition. After the verse Q-Tip contributed to Left and Right was deemed subpar, D'Angelo called in Method Man and Redman to give the song street cred. The stripped-down beat behind D'Angelo's Chicken Grease was originally slated for Common's album until D demanded it for himself. By the time the sessions at Electric Lady came to a close, the Soulquarians' idea had taken on a life of its own. Its four founding members would go on to help craft classic albums by The Roots, Jill Scott, Bilal, Talib Kweli, and Dilla's own group, Slum Village, racking up gold and platinum records along the way, as well as a Grammy for Voodoo. Soon enough, Soulquarian had become shorthand for the extended crew's dirty funk, Nag Champa soul aesthetic. But just as all that creative energy came to a head, things fell apart. A profile and photo spread in the September 2000 issue of Vibe formally introduced the extended Soulquarian family to the outside world. It was originally supposed to feature Questlove alone, but being uncomfortable at the center of attention, he insisted on bringing along some of his creative partners. It made for an epic photograph, but his humility would ultimately backfire. When the issue dropped, Questlove started getting calls from collaborators who didn't appreciate how the article suggested that they worked for him. The group started to splinter. Some of its members would make music together again, but the magic moment had passed. While each of these artists is a star in their own right, the Soulquarians shine brightest as a constellation, a legacy that will continue to burn long after their individual light is extinguished.